Okay, so for everybody who is just joining us, we're about to get into InDesign, and I am going to do a demo of, I'm not going to do one of the menu covers that you guys need to do this week. And the reason for that is that I think it's really hard when somebody designs something in front of you for you to not see it. It's kind of like seeing these three examples and then not kind of unseeing them. So rather, what I thought I would do is try and design something a little bit different. I'm still going to be designing a front cover for something, but I'm just going to design something a little bit different so that way I can show you how to set up your file and how to put it all together and package it and everything else, but it just won't be the same exact file that you have or the same exact, Maxwell's or Starlight Bistro or the Walk and Roll. I just think it's a little bit easier for you guys to kind of come up with original ideas when you're not watching somebody design something and you're like, now that she put the box over there, I don't know where else to put the box because it seems like that's the only place it should go. So that's kind of my rationale behind that. All right, so let's get into InDesign. You'll notice, and like I said, when you first get into InDesign, that's when you want to change those settings by going into InDesign CC, Preferences, Units and Increments, and changing it from pikas to inches before you create a new file. Once you create a new file, it's only going to change the preference for that file. It's not going to change it for anything else. So you want to make sure that you change it so it stays changed on your machine. All right, we're going to do a new file. So there's a couple of different ways you can do this. You can hit the Create New button, go to File New, Document, or just hit Command N, which will bring you in. And you'll end up, after you do things a bunch of times, having a bunch of different presets, but you want to make sure you're on print at least, not on web. And let's look at what we need to do for our setup of our document. It needs to be 8.5 by 11. So that means a regular page size. You want to make it portrait. Make sure it's not defaulted to landscape. We need to have 2 pages. And we want to uncheck facing pages because we don't want them to face each other. We want to start on page 1. You want a margin of 0.375, so I'm going to copy that, paste that in, and make sure it changes in all 4 boxes. It should be linked. You want a bleed of 0.125, so you're going to go down to bleed, paste that in, and as soon as you tab or put your cursor in the next bar, it will fill it in for you. And create. You don't need to worry about the slug area. So this is what your document will look like when you first start it up. And you'll notice that I'm in the Essentials. And what I ended up doing is I went into Essentials and I told it to reset my workspace to the way it's supposed to look because, like I said, my workspace ends up being a mess by the time I'm done working each time. So I wanted to make sure I had a nice fresh start for you guys. All right, let's take a look very quickly at the actual document that was created because there's a kind of different, well, you should be using your Mac to create these for the classes. The only thing that's really different is the quick keys. Instead of command, it's control. But otherwise, I mean, I'll only be teaching to the Mac version. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom in because I kind of want to show you the different parts of the document that's going on here. And remember, if you hold down that space bar, you get the hand tool so you can kind of drag it around. All right, right here, this red line going outside of your document, this is your bleed line. So anything that is going to bleed needs to extend either to this red line or past this red line. Because what the printer is going to do is it's going to cut your piece right around here, but things tend to shift, which is why we also have this margin, which means that any pertinent information that we don't want to get cut off needs to stay within this pink margin area. This is our safe zone that we're going to design in. But color bands or images that we want to extend right to the edge of our printed piece, they should go out to the red bleed lines. And then again, this is your panel up at the top. So right now I am on the item select tool, or the black arrow. So these are the different options that I have with this. If you'll notice when I go down to the type tool, it turns into text options up at the top. And here are my two rectangles that I was talking about. So this one, no black outline. This one, oh, I changed my default. This is supposed to default to have a black outline, and at some point, I believe I changed that. Let me see. In my tools. I don't even remember how I did it. It was driving me nuts that it happened. But yeah, so not honestly, or it might have even been the Photoshop change, not Photoshop, InDesign changed it in the last upgrade, finally, from people complaining. But those are your two rectangle tools. Again, you know, no fill, no stroke by default. This one, the shape tool, is a default of no fill with a black stroke. That's what InDesign says is the difference between the two. But nestled underneath, you will notice that you also have an ellipse. So you can draw circles. If you want a perfect circle, hold down Shift. That'll draw you that perfect circle. And again, same thing underneath, ellipse tool, different than the frame tool. And then you also have a polygon frame tool. And a polygon tool. Again, just a difference, the marquee in the middle. We have that gradient tool. So let's say that I want a gradient up here at the top. Open up my swatches. What I would do is I would draw my rectangle box, because I can't just add a gradient to this. You have to put everything into a container in InDesign. That's kind of the best way to think about it. You know how Photoshop, you can just draw like you're drawing on canvas? In InDesign, everything needs to go into a container first. So your containers are either your text boxes that you draw, or your rectangular boxes, or your circles that you draw, and then you put things into them. So let's say that I want to do a gradient. I need to first draw this rectangle and then go down to the gradient tool. And I can start to click inside of my rectangle, and I can pull my gradient any way that I want. And if you go up here, double click, oh, come on, window, gradient, there we go. Pull open the gradient tab. Anything that you're looking for, if it's not already open, it's in the window tab. So CC libraries, color, everything's kind of under something. Info, layers, links, those are your images that you place. objects and layout. So if you need to align something, you should probably keep that open. That used to be up here. It's not anymore. Just, again, the little things. Now see what's happened? I've got all these windows open everywhere. Objects. Sometimes you need the Pathfinder tool, the character panel, that over here. And I've gone from having a nice, pretty desktop to a big, messy one in 2 seconds. But you can change the colors in the gradient with that gradient tool. So what you would do is double click where you see the first color. Oh, they changed the way that it used to be, it would pop it up. All right, this is little things. Now you need to drag the color on top. There we go. All right. But if you don't drag it perfectly, which is why I hate this, it'll add another swatch next to it. And if that happens, just pull the swatch off. And then same thing with this one. Drag the color on top from your swatches until you get a little fist that looks like it's, see how it didn't do it? Drag the black off. There we go. So now I've got a blue to red gradient. It's one of those things where you're just going to have to kind of play with the tool to get the feel of it. And delete that. Text boxes are extremely important. So you need to select your text tool first, and then you need to manually click and drag a text box in order to put text in it. I do not know why or when, but for some reason my text tool started defaulting to right-hand alignment. Makes no sense. Let's see if that fixed it. And it did. All right. I'm sorry, I'm coming down with my daughter's cold, I think. So once you draw that text box, you can now, start typing. Select your font by doing a Command A, and you can change your font up here, or you can change it within the characters panel. You can get to Typekit to add new fonts on your machine. I'll kind of show you how to do that in a minute. I just wanted to show you, using that the type tool. Then what other tools are we gonna need for today? Oh, you'll need to place images today. So there's a couple of different ways that you can place images. You can first draw a box to place your image in. Let's say that you want an image in the entire background. So you'll draw a box from one edge of that red bleed to the other edge of that red bleed. And then you can go to File, Place, because you need to place an image inside of this box that you just drew. Again, everything needs a container. And navigate over to where you save those images. And unzip this. All right. So I'm going to place an image in my entire background. Just got to remember. This one. And it's going to place it right up into the top corner of the document, not necessarily the top corner of the bleed. So you will need to go in there with the white arrow, the direct selection tool, select that image, and you can move the image around right inside of that box that you've created. So I need this image, which I originally created not this size, basically, to run all the way down. So what I'm going to do is close these up a little. Where I see this bounding box, I'm going to hold down Shift because I want to make sure that I scale everything proportionally. Or I can make sure I've constrained my proportions up here. This should be locked. Constrain proportions. There we go. So I need to get this image all the way over to all four sides of my bleed. And you want to zoom in and make sure you got it there. So when it goes to the printer, it's correct. Whoops, side's a little off. There we go. And this. If you got to move things, make sure you check all of them again. All right, so now when this is sent to the printer, it's actually going to cut this right here. So my text, even though my banner runs outside, that's fine. But my text is well within this margin that I've created, which is the taste the Southern Hemisphere. And you can kind of zoom in and just make sure you got a good buffer there. And if you want to know what something looks like when it's cut, you know, without that bleed, what you can do is you can go to View, Screen Mode, and do Preview. And it'll show you what it looks like cut. And then just go back to normal, Screen Mode normal, and it'll bring you back to the normal mode. And you should be designing in normal mode so you can make sure that you get things out to those bleed lines where they need to be. All right, so I'm going to add in another picture on top of this picture. And again, there's two ways that I can do this. I just showed you the first way, which is drawing a rectangle tool and then placing the image inside of it. But you can also just go up to File, Place, and select your image. Just gonna see. That's the one I needed. And you'll see it gives you a little preview of it. And when you click, you can start to drag and place that image and then let go. And it'll place it proportionally for you. So I'm gonna make sure that this goes right up to the edge of my safe area. But what if I didn't place it the right size? So I can just select it again and hold down Command and Shift at the same time while dragging that corner, and it will proportionally scale it for me. And you want to make sure that you don't scale things too large past 100% because it can start to get pixelated. And to check how large that you've scaled them, you can use the white arrow, the direct selection tool, and what it does is it selects what's inside of the box. And this one's at 74% by 74%, so you can see that you've scaled it proportionally. And then this image is at 106% by 106%. It's over 100, but it's not too much over, so it's not anything that you need to really worry about. And then I think that there was another thing I was going to put down at the bottom. One more image. So I'm going to do it again with the rectangle frame tool. I'm going to draw a box down here. Go to File, Place, and I think this was my edge. There we go. I have a little, it makes it look a little bit like a torn edge that I've created. So I'm going to go right here and drag that down. There we go. So it looks like it's been torn out and I can add some information down at the bottom. All right. So I have on this, I'm just looking to see if there was any other images I needed to add. Oh, there's one other image I needed to add. So I'm going to do file place. It was at farmer's market. There we go. Click and drag that, place that right there. All right, so I have all of my images, and just like you do in Photoshop, you can design things in layers in InDesign as well. So I'm gonna click on this layer, and I'm gonna rename it images, and then hit OK. And then I'm gonna create a new layer, and I'm gonna start putting my text on this new layer, the layer 2. So I'll double click on it and rename it text. And if I want to, I can lock my images layer so I don't accidentally select something by accident and move something around. You know, kind of a good system to use. I'm also going to save this. So let me go in and get my naming convention. Do a file, save as. Make sure I'm in the right mod. Week 1, assignment. There we go. All right. Always save and save often. Things can fall off or fall apart if you don't do that. All right. So text. Now you guys have text in Word documents. So all you need to do is copy and paste that text directly from Word into InDesign, and you don't need to retype anything. Definitely don't retype things. Logo means add in the logo. It doesn't mean that you have to use the text logo. Here is the address, phone number, and the hours. So make sure you're copying and pasting. I, however, am going to need to type in some text. So the Amelia Island Wine Festival is going to be held, we'll just say, on October 12th, 2018 from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. But I want to use a different font. Everything defaults to Mini and Pro, and that should not, I shouldn't see anything with Mini and Pro. I want to use Garamond, regular. And I want this type to be white. So I'm going to open up my swatches, and you'll notice that my swatch now shows a T right there, and it's also up here. And you can navigate over to paper. Paper is technically white. In InDesign, if it's confusing, you can rename it white. You can bump up your text with the arrows. You can use quick keys, which are Command-Shift period to go bigger, Command-Shift comma to go down one. Paragraphs are up here, so you can center a line. You can also open up window. Where are you? I usually have it open. Type in tables, paragraph, there we go. You can do different paragraph options. You might want to just kind of nest that in with your characters. And anything that you drag over here, you can drop it right into the panel so it's easily accessible. You probably won't be using the gradient tool that often. So I put in the time. They're going to have, oh, I can show you this cool gradient feather tool, just as I'm saying that you probably don't need to use the gradient tool. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw with my rectangle tool, not my rectangle frame tool. I'm just using those to place images. My rectangle tool I'm going to use to actually draw and color in a rectangle. And I want it to go to the bleed and then to the edge of this farmer's market. and I'm going to pull up my gradient swatch tool. Go to window, because I just closed it out, and open up under color, gradients, and this bothers me that you can't copy and double click. I feel like here we go. All right, color, no, cancel. All right, color picker, finally. All right, I'm gonna use my eyedropper, and I want, really, come on. I don't want that. It'd just be easier to create a swatch. Sometimes, like I said, sometimes they change things in InDesign, and it bothers me. All right, so I wanted this red right here on this side, and then gradiating to nothing, basically. So I'm gonna select it, and you'll notice it changed my rectangle to that color, and it also changed my swatch fill to that color. So I'm gonna double click on that color, and I wanna add a CMYK swatch of this. And that's gonna put this into my swatches panel. And then just hit OK. I did it twice by accident. And somehow I have a Pantone color, but we'll go over that after. Probably from this. And I want this, however, to be that gradient. So I got to drag this onto here. And then this is going to seem weird, but I need to drag the same color over here. Get rid of the blue. And then I'm going to use my gradient feather tool. And I want to start to bring that in. Whoops. Click here and drag out because I want it to start to feather as it gets to the edge. So kind of gradients into nothing. There we go. And now if I wanted like maybe this first color to be just a little hair darker. I don't know why I'm getting color pickers in RGB. I just have to check something real quick. My working spaces should be CMYK. This is bizarre. All right. I have no idea why I'm getting RGB, but I basically want to make a darker version of this color and add it as a CMYK swatch. So I can drag that, whoops. Here and let go. All right. So it's just a darker kind of cherryish red to the lighter one. It's very subtle, but you know, gives it a little something. And in there, I'm going to put what type of wine they have. So I want to use the same exact font. So I'm going to select this text and copy it into that text box I just drew. And I'll do it right justified, I guess. I'm going to say award-winning wines from Premiere, rowing, I can't spell this late in the evening, of Argentina, New Zealand, South Africa, Australia, and Chile. So maybe I want the places to be a little bit bigger. I can change the text, even just one word within one text box. I don't have to draw separate text boxes. So I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And I can even change the font as well. I'm going to change it to the bold version of that font. And zoom in. I just want to kind of visually vertically center this. Sometimes it's hard to tell with the edges that it shows you. So you can go to View, Extras, and hide frame edges if you want. And you can kind of see a little bit better. You can kind of hide anything. And then I just need to put some text down here. Again, minding my margin that I created, which you'll notice for the bottom of the page is right here, that pink line. So I don't want to put any text below it. And I need a nice sans serif font. So maybe I'll use Futura, which is a good sans serif font. I'm going to say, for complete information, and to purchase tickets, please visit www.ameliawine.com. Make that a little bit bigger. Maybe place it right on the bottom. It's okay if the descender of the letter P or something like that goes off the side. That is okay. And I'm going to go back into my layers and change this image. I'm going to bring this down just a smidge. I want this to look visually centered within the area that's going to be cut, which is right here. So again, I can do my preview. And that looks pretty spot on. Go back to normal. All right, so I have a nice little cover for my menu here. Next, what I need to do is I've saved it. I've used a logo. I've created my menu cover layout. I would then go to page 2, which is, you can either go to pages and double click on page 2, or you can just scroll down and there it is. And this is where you would do your second menu design. So again, both for the same restaurant, you just want to be able to show me, your client, 2 different options so I can choose one. That's the reason why we tend to do, separate designs. And you would create that second version of your cover. And then remember, whatever you start here, you will have to carry over to the other side for week 2's assignment. So if you copy the layout from the example, your creativity will be low on the rubric. And then you need to package the file when you are finished. So I want to show you exactly how to set this up right off the bat. First things first, we're going to make a preset for crop and bleed marks, which will make your life exponentially easier going forward. So not only am I about kind of showing you things, I also want to show you things that will make your life easier, not just in my class, but in your other classes. And then you'll take DES 114 and you'll say, that's Shannon, I'm so happy she showed me this. Or at least I can only hope that you'll do that. So first thing what you're going to want to do is do a file, Adobe PDF exports. and go to high quality print. And it's gonna, you know, pull up where you're gonna save it, and make sure that you're in the, you know, in the week 1 folder or the assignment folder that you've created where you're keeping all of your work together, and hit save. Then it's gonna open up this dialog box. I want you to navigate to the 3rd option down called Marks and Bleeds, and you're going to click on All Printer Marks, and you'll notice it checks them all. And then I want you to click on Use Document Bleed Settings. And then I want you to do Save Preset and name this All Printer Marks and hit OK. And then hit Export. What that is going to do is that is going to create a PDF that shows me where this is going to get cut and where your bleed line is. It also shows your registration bars, which is fine, and the name of the assignment down at the bottom. This is what your PDF should look like when you submit it to me. But we first need to, we also need to package the file. And what packaging does is it puts everything together for when you send it to a printer or when you send it to your instructor. If you just give me just your InDesign file and I try to open it and you haven't packaged it, your fonts will be missing and will show up wrong. Your images will be missing, and sometimes they'll just show as grayed out boxes, and I won't even be able to see your design. And I definitely, if I was a printer, would not be able to print your piece based off of just your InDesign file. Everything would either print missing or low res. So it's extremely important that you understand packaging. And InDesign makes it super easy. You just go to File, Package. And it's gonna show you if anything is missing. So there's 4 fonts used, 0 are missing, 1 is embedded, 0 are incomplete. And then you'll notice how I have an error here. It says I have 1 spot color. So I'm gonna go into my swatches, and here it is, that Pantone color with the little dot. That's wrong, so I need to double click on it and change it from spot to process, and then hit OK, and now try it again. File, Package. Normally, I would have fixed that beforehand, but I want to show you what to look for when something is wrong. Fonts, none are missing. Links and images, none of my images are missing. Because if you move an image from where you have it in a folder after you have placed it in InDesign, InDesign no longer knows where to go back into your computer and find that image, so it'll be missing, and you would need to relink it. Colors and inks, C, M, Y, and K. K stands for black. Print settings, fine. External plugins, don't worry about it. Hit the package button. It's gonna tell you, it needs to be saved. Do you wanna save now? Yes, and then it's gonna say printing instructions, just hit continue. Then it's going to give you all of these checked options. And it's gonna say include a PDF, select your PDF preset. Remember that all printer marks that we just made? Select that one and hit package. Make sure you're putting it in the correct folder. I almost put it in the wrong folder. We're in mod 3, week 1. Assignment, my assignment. Make sure it's named DES 105, assignment 1, S McNamara. You can leave on the word folder if you want, or you can take it off. And click package. And then hit OK. It's always going to give you a warning. It's fine. So now inside of that folder that it created, I have an IDML file, which is actually an InDesign file that can be opened on older versions of InDesign. So let's say, because I created this in Adobe CC 2018, let's say somebody didn't upgrade their computer from Adobe CC 2017, they can still open up my file by opening up this IDML file. They just won't have all of the same options possibly that I had in the 2018 version. Then you would have your InDesign file, the .indd file, and that PDF you created. Double check your PDFs before you upload. Make sure everything looks good. You know, is your design balanced? Have you limited the number of fonts that you've used? Is there any clashing colors? Does it look professional? You know, kind of give it a once over before you upload it. If you're not sure, visit the learning coaches and ask them for a critique. That's what they are there for. I cannot critique your work before I grade your work. If you have some specific questions or problems that you're running into, yes, I can definitely answer those all day long. I have no problem with that. But I can't pre-grade your work. That's, you know, that's one of the things that the learning coaches, they can't technically pre-grade your work because I'm the one who grades your work, but they can at least offer you a critique of what they think when they look at your designs. So really utilize that, and that's what they're there for, and they're really helpful in that way. And then you also have your document fonts and your links, which are all of the images that are used in that InDesign file. So that way when I go in and I open up your file, I shouldn't get an error that pops up saying that this image is missing, or, you know, I might get an error saying that this font is missing, and when I navigate over to your document fonts, it might be in there, or if it was a font that you chose from Typekit, I can get it that way. So that way I can open up your file, everything will look correct, and it won't do anything weird or crazy because things were missing. So then after you have done that and double check that everything's in there, you want to select that folder, right click on it, and compress it so we can make a zip file. And that zip file is what you need to submit. So go up to submit assignment, and I want to give you a suggestion. First things first, choose a zip file and submit it. Then what I want you to do is click add another file and choose your PDF. You might need to navigate back into that folder to find it and upload that as well. Oh, and I'll fix this. I'll fix it so it allows PDF files. The reason I'm saying that is I can leave you comments on your PDF files if you upload them that way. So you might want to do that. Again, I have to go into the settings and change this, but I will allow it to allow PDF files, and that way I can leave you some comments in your grades that you can see. Like I can draw little bounding boxes and just leave, you know, some comments. It kind of makes it a little bit easier to have a visual of what I'm talking about when I'm explaining changes that you might want to do. So I will try to do that for you. And then again, make sure that you are looking over the rubric. Is it on time, in the proper format, a zip package folder? Is it to spec? The page size, the margins, and the bleeds are set up correctly, and that it's not a spread with two side-by-side pages. Two different layouts of the same menu are included. Each contains the same information, just presented in different ways, so 15 points for each layout. Images are sized proportionally and image frames are appropriately used. Typography is proportional, legible, and readable. Your frames are properly positioned on the layout. Text and image frames are properly used. And then overall creativity, the layout reflects an understanding of basic design principles. They are creative, professional, and could be presented to a client with few or no changes. There's a basic use of the elements of design and craft principles. The assignment did not duplicate the example layout. And then don't forget, when you're finished, to also take your week 1 assessment quiz, and then you will be done for the week. All right. So I know we went over a lot tonight, but any questions before we end? And I definitely suggest going back, rewatching the live session, even if you came tonight, before you get into InDesign for the first time, if you're not used to using the program, and try to take some notes, you know, for what the different tools do. I would even suggest, when I share my slides with you, printing out this slide, which is slide 24. So that way you can see what the different tools are and just kind of keep this on your desk. Might make it a little bit easier. So any questions before we end tonight? All right, awesome. Well, you guys have a great night, and remember that the multi-session is tomorrow, so if you do run into any questions, please feel free to pop in. I will be in there from 4 to 6 p.m., and I hope to see you guys back next week. I'm so happy that so many people were able to make it tonight. All right, have a great night, everyone.